Growing up in the West Midlands, I've got this crazy memory of being able to walk through like an enchanted forest out into an opening where you see this big red brick castle ruin where you could walk up and climb up the walls with no one there looking after it and no one to tell you to get down. Now, I know that memories can exaggerate things over time, so on my recent trip back to the West Midlands, I had to take a look to see if this place is exactly as I remember it, so join me as I look for Acton Burnell Castle. Flying out of the county town of Shrewsbury on my trusty steed, it wasn't long before I was navigating the long country roads all the way to Acton Burnell. Stopping for a few sights along the way, that is. A few more miles of slogging it on the long country roads, I end up in the small village of Acton Burnell, and this is exactly as I remember it. And if I remember correctly, then we're going to be heading off to the left. Now, you'd be tempted to call this a bit of a hillbilly village, but seeing as my cousins grew up here, I'm going to keep quiet on that one and let you make your minds up for yourself. Okay, now it looks like we're approaching someone's garden and we are going to go straight through. Ah yes, there we go. Clear as day. Now the church coming up to the left is called St Mary's and it dates from about 1280. And it's pretty much untouched since then, which is really unusual. Very cool looking tombs inside and well worth a visit. I remember thinking that gothic look was really scary when I was young, and I still think it does now. Anyway, on we go. The sign is pointing me right into these trees here. And here it is, the enchanted forest. Now, I do have a memory of climbing one of these trees when I was young, and the branch snapping, and I landed with the one beneath me, right between my legs. Ow, I can still feel that now. Anyway, here we go, through the gates. Here's your ticket. Into a pretty inconspicuous park. And there it is. You can see that the insides are pretty gutted, but the structure's held up pretty well. It was built in 1284 by Robert Burnell, who I think might have something to do with the name of this area. With the area being so close to Wales, there was frequently military action going on here, and Edward I is even said to have stayed here. Wonder if he ever stood in this room here. And looking up to the roof, this bit was converted into a dovetail in the 1800s, so not quite the original roof that I thought it was back when I was a youngster. That said, rather than a military castle, this was more of a fortified residence. Robert had a taste for a bit of zeal, and it was him that built that church, St Mary's, that we looked at just a bit earlier. By 1420, sadly, it was abandoned for a new man around the corner, and left to decay. And looking at pictures from the 1800s, it hasn't really changed since then. Bidding goodbye to Acton Burnell Castle, and having just heard from a local about a nearby chapel, with an almost untouched set of furniture since the 1600s, I think I got a mile and a half further to ride. Really does feel like you're in the middle of nowhere here, and you can tell that these roads were built for the horse and carts. And let me tell you, those horses would have been blowing going up this hill. In this part of the country, there really isn't any sign of modern life, apart from the bike I'm on, so it really does get the imagination going, and it probably is the exact same scenery that people who are coming to visit the area would have seen 400 years ago when this chapel was in full use. And speaking of Langley Chapel, it apparently fell out of use by about 1700, so all the furniture is pretty much untouched since then and didn't go through any modification process. And if you divert your attention above the hedges there, you can see the weather-boarded bell tower of the chapel. As you approach, it almost looks more Saxon than Tudor. But you're reminded of the Tudor origin when you get a bit closer to these doors with their Tudor arches and nail-studded oak doors. With the chapel being closed today, I'm going to have a sneaky peek through the window to have a look at this furniture. Let's hope there's no ghosts in there.
What a shame it's closed, because I really wanted to go inside, but I'll put a couple of pictures up, and I think those creepy shots through the window will do us for now. So, the chapel here used to serve Langley House, which is an old medieval moated house. And apparently there's some ruins right around here. Let's go have a look.
A few metres up the road, I found the old barn. But a little bit further, you get to peek into the courtyard of the farm, which reveals a pretty impressive looking gatehouse. The gatehouse to Langley Hall. Langley Hall was flattened a long time ago, and all that remains is a field which has been preserved with the ditches of the old moat that would surround the house. It's one of the few examples in the country, and one of the best apparently, though I think the gatehouse is probably a little more impressive. As you can see through the gap in the trees, it's certainly a moat there, but you really have to use your imagination for this one. On the long road back to Shrewsbury, I happened across a little gem by the side of the road. Cantlock Bridge is a cast iron bridge built in 1813, possibly by the great engineer Thomas Telford, who was a local of the area. Telford's revolutionary use of cast iron meant stronger and lighter structures that could support a flat deck for navigation over the river. This is the only remaining bridge of its type still in situ, and it's amazing to think that up until 1970 that used to support traffic. Time for a closer look, I think. A couple of miles later and I'm back in Shrewsbury, ready to go for a pint after a good day's riding. Thanks for joining me on that one, and be sure to like and subscribe for more historical adventures. That's all for now.